Loading. Oh, okay. All right. I'm still getting situated here. Okay. Got it. All right, let's get rocking and rolling here. Sorry for my delay. I realized right before I hit record on this thing, I didn't even do a mic check. But it's looking like my audio is good. Sorry, I don't have like a crazy cool intro to fucking get this show started, but whatever. Here we go. So as you all can kind of see here tonight on Hot Genre Topics, it's just me. Generic, as if you guys were here 2 weeks ago, he was having some internet issues and he kept on popping in and off. So literally, I'll just make this story really quick before we can get into the show. But he's not here tonight because so it took literally 2 weeks down in Austin for his internet to be adjusted, and we were texting back and forth nonstop for a few weeks, and he just goes like, dude, I don't know if I can do the show. I don't know if I'm going to just keep on getting kicked off. He's doing like practice trial runs with people on Zoom, and he just keeps getting booted off after like 20 minutes. But then he finally got it fixed as of Friday. And in the big concern was he's finishing up school, and he was literally like, I don't know if I can do this show. And I was like, dude, just he needs Zoom for school. So I was like, focus on school, finish school. It's your last semester. So he's off handling his finals this weekend. So I said I would man the ship while he's doing his thing. So he gave us a shout out on Instagram before we got going. I see I got people joining in right now, which is pretty freaking cool. I'm going to now just throw it on up there on the gram. Bear with me. So tonight, what we're going to do here on Hot Genre Topics is we're going to do our usual routine. We are going to drink some hot sauce. We're going to drink some craft beer, which I got both off here to the side. And we're going to talk some horror movies. And we're going to talk some a specific little subgenre going on, and that is none other than Christmas horror here tonight. Christmas horror is something that I think a lot. We did Thanksgiving horror like last month at some point, and I feel like Thanksgiving horror is a hard thing to discover and track down. And I actually want to get this started by saying one thing. I mentioned a month ago on our Thanksgiving horror episode is that Bloodbeat, a movie streaming on Tubi right now, is not actually Thanksgiving horror. It's actually Christmas horror. I was wrong. I stand corrected. My sincerest apologies. And so you can literally lump in, if you remember me talking about all that, you can lump in the film Bloodbeat about the killer samurai in Wisconsin, if you remember what that is, into your Christmas horror watching. So later on in the episode, we are going to talk about some Christmas horror. We being me, it's just me here taking care of business tonight. Forewarning, this might be maybe a shorter episode. This might be maybe a shorter episode than usual. Just because I don't got my co-host here to talk to. For some of you who follow along all the time, we didn't do a pre-show because I'm not going to sit there on Instagram and just talk to like two people who hop in the pre-show chat. But let's get it going here with the routine. We're going to do it just like it'd be me and Generic here. But it's just me here. I'm going to kick things off with the craft beer I'm drinking tonight. I'm a little weary of it. I'm not gonna lie. No offense to the people that made it. This is none other than I gotta go back to the Zoom here so I can stay up to date with what I'm talking about while I'm live here. There we go. This is Oyster City. I believe that's the name of the brewing company, Oyster City, USA. They are based in two areas in the Carolinas. Morganton, North Carolina, and it looks like Charleston, South Carolina. Um, I have been to Charleston, South Carolina. By the way, if you're a big horror fan, you need to go to Charleston, South Carolina, and check out their ghost tours because it's an old city. It's got a lot of story, got a lot of history, got a lot of haunted history. I highly recommend you head out to Charleston and check it out. I went on my wife and I went on a ghost tour by a guy who got like really into it, but in a very sophisticated, educated way. I believe his name is Mike Brown. He has a podcast called Pleasing Terrors about just, crazy hauntings that go on in the world. It's a great listen. I highly recommend it. But back to Charleston. I believe I was at the place where they make this. This logo seems strikingly familiar. Oyster City Brewing Company. It's a German style lager. This is such a it looks like a can of soup, but I'm going in blind. Let's just pour this baby up. That is a horrible pour by me. Let that sit. Tonight's hot sauce for me. It's called A-Frame Double Barrel Hot Sauce. This is sugar free. I found out, by the way. It's spicy with cilantro and lime infused flavor wave. I will get that and douse that on some Ritz chips here in just a minute. So, with all that being said, it is now officially time to do the fun side of this live cast. Oh my God. And I also want to bring up the point for anybody listening right now on YouTube Live. We got the chat going on right now. I want to maybe just throw it out there since I'm here by myself tonight. If you want to maybe engage with me a little bit, usually I leave that side to generic because I can't keep up with things. And sometimes my laptop lags a little bit on getting back to stuff. So if you want to maybe get back to me after I drop some titles. And away we go with 5 films I've been watching between last episode and this episode. I'm going to kick things off. And because I need to follow up on it. Because I kind of talked about it. I didn't talk bad about it, but I want to say I talked not too hopeful about Netflix's Wednesday. The Addams Family adaptation of some sorts. About where we follow Wednesday Addams around as she goes off to a new school and whatnot. And Wednesday, obviously played by Jenna Ortega. She is fucking great in it. She's had a great 2022 and she completely delivers in the performance that she gives off for the hell's this damn show name again? Wednesday. I won't lie. Like, last time we talked about it, I kind of threw it under the bus. I felt it grew on me. It grew on me to a point where of course, for my other show, I reached out to see if I could get anybody maybe to come on the show. And I came close a few times, but a couple of rejections here and there. But this show fucking hits. It's been out since Thanksgiving weekend. Great. Jenna Ortega just really delivers playing Wednesday. She obviously, the big viral sensation has been her dance that she does on the show, which is a real cool scene. It's in episode 4. Okay. It's kind of bitter. It's okay, but I like it's all right. Okay, Oyster City. What was I talking about? I just really quick want to go over it because if you haven't checked out Wednesday, you should check it out as soon as you can. A lot of good comic moments. I love how they bring in Fred Armisen as Uncle Fester towards the end of the show. I hope they bring this back for I hope they bring it back for a season two. They have to bring it back for a season two. This was such a hit for Netflix, and blowing up right now. Um, yeah, just go check out Wednesday. It is a lot of fun if you haven't. Well, I mean, I gave my compliments to Catherine Zeta-Jones. I thought she was gonna be in like more of the show. Spoiler alert, she's only in like 2 episodes because the show is called Wednesday, and that's the main focus of the show. I looked up a lot of other cool things about the show. They shot it in Romania, which I thought was cool. The little town that the show takes place in is really good, really cool looking, I should say. Has a real cool atmosphere, very Addams Family esque. And I thought Tim Burton was just maybe a guy who signed off on it. He actually directed a lot of the episodes, which I thought was interesting. Okay, let me slow down a little bit because I just wanted to recap y'all on Wednesday, and that is a high recommend from me. Let me jump ahead now to. By the way, I finished Wednesday. I don't want to give any spoilers for anybody who hasn't checked it out yet. Yeah. So next up, I want to go to a movie that came out, gosh, like 25-ish years ago. This is streaming on Shudder right now, and it's called Bad Moon. And it has been on Shudder for years, and I have scrolled past it so many times. Let's get the hot sauce going. Sorry. It's weird. I'm sorry if bear with me if I'm a little, I don't know, adjusting being solo. It's weird just kind of talking to myself on YouTube live. This stuff I have to say has some like a garlicky waft. So let's see how this goes. I'm going to get into Bad Moon in just a minute. I got to try the hot sauce. Oh, okay. Okay. It's got a tickle to it. It's not like so the crackers I'm eating are like Ritz crackers, and they got like a coating of, like stuff that's not good for you on there. And I think that's helping with the hot sauce because it's like making it a lot more than what it is. I mean, I've had a lot of like goopy hot sauce on this show. This is like watery. It's kind of cool. I forgot to bring water, and I'm here flying solo. Bad Moon is a that was a good transition. Bad Moon is a excuse me. Whew. So Bad Moon is a werewolf movie, 90s werewolf film. Feels very. I mean, this movie was backed by like Warner Brothers and released by Warner Brothers, so it feels big and like kind of set pieces, at least in the opening scene. But it gets a little smaller in concept as the movie goes on. It's guy, adventurer, archaeologist, whatever. I don't know what his job title was. Out in the jungle, gets like attacked one night as I don't know. They're at a campsite and I forget where, and it's a werewolf comes in and like rips everybody apart. There's a sex scene in the opening scene, and you're like, oh great, it's gonna be like one of them exploitative like 90s horror, low budget 90s horror films. No, it's not. They just get that out of the way first. Guy obviously gets bit, and after that you don't know really where it's gonna go. And then we cut to like a single mom in, I think it takes place in like somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, and a little boy. It's the same little boy who played Dennis the Menace in the 90s Dennis the Menace movies. Yes. Hello. All right, people are showing up or leaving stuff in the chat. Cool. But Bad Moon is, I always lose my train of thought. So what happens with Bad Moon is it's the sauce. For anybody just tuning in, I know I just got some more viewers, but that's what we're doing here. A-frame double barrel Oyster City beer beer company. I don't know, but all right. So Bad Moon, the werewolf movie, family in Pacific Northwest, single mom, son is the actor played by Dennis the Menace. Uh, and you start to learn that there's this distant or not this distant uncle. I at first I thought it was like the dad who's just like this deadbeat dad that comes and goes, but it is the uncle, the kid's uncle. We meet him, and it's the guy that was in the jungle that got bit by the wolf. And there's a dog in the movie, and I just want to let you all know ahead of time, for anybody who hasn't seen this, the dog does not die. I like letting people know that ahead of time because nobody wants to fucking see that in a movie. No, nobody. Like, I still have never seen Marley and Me because someone said like, yeah, he gets put to sleep at the end, and I go like, well, I'm gonna sit that one out. This is the smartest. Excuse me. This is the smartest German Shepherd in any movie ever. And I know German Shepherds are very bright dogs, very territorial, but also very loyal to their owners. I forget the name of the dog in real life or the character the dog is playing. He is absolutely steals the movie. This movie becomes about a heroic dog as he starts to realize that this uncle that is now being let into their home, there's something off. And he goes out at night and prowls around as a werewolf. And there's like a tough scene where they realize the dog has to be brought to a pound. Obviously, in the long run, the dog's going to end up most likely being the hero of the story. I don't mean to kind of spoil things but I know people get a little weary when a dog is in a horror movie because you think it's going to die. This dog becomes the fucking hero of the movie. It's awesome. I went in with low expectations on Bad Moon, and I came out fucking like so blown away. 80 minutes, short and sweet, doesn't overstay its welcome. You do feel the budget constraints on it every now and then, but regardless, what are you gonna do? I recommend it. Check it out on Shudder. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere else, but please, I highly recommend it. Track it down. So much fun. I think it started to kick off like a werewolf binge. Me and Generic like to talk about werewolf films from time to time because it's kind of a genre that we think, or a subgenre that might need some, I don't know, fresh eyes on it. We feel like we've gone through zombies, we've gone through vampires, we've gone through, what else have we did? Elevated horror. I hate to say elevated horror, but we've gone through this, that, and the other thing, but we haven't brought werewolves back, really. Maybe it's a good time, just saying. Anyway, regardless, what's next? Sorry, slight delay here. What's next on my list for what I've been watching the past week? Let me hold on a sec. I gotta go through this bottle, dude. I gotta put in work on this bottle. Let me check. Let's see. What do we got? I'm just checking. All right, I'm seeing a few more have showed up. That's awesome. Happy to see that. Happy people want to hear me blabbering. Let's go with none other than a film that I revisited. And if you listen to my other show that airs on Mondays, Tyler Geis's Basement, I did what did I do? I did a mailbag episode where I had viewer mail and everything. And someone brought up a movie that I didn't care for when it came out. And when I went back and I saw it again, it grew on me and grew on me and grew on me. And I even made like a little quirky Instagram reel. I'm starting to do it on the Instagram page for the Basement. Feel free to give it a follow, by the way. This is none other than 2002's Don Coscarelli directed. Still got the DVD on my desk. Bubba Ho-Tep. All right. I need a drink for this. So Bubba Ho-Tep it's a fun title to say, Bubba Ho-Tep. I had heard about this movie for years before I ever actually saw it. I'd pass by it, and DVD and Blockbuster and whatnot, other like FYE and other DVD rental or purchase stores. And I was like, Elvis, Bruce Campbell is on the cover as Elvis. I didn't get it. I had a friend who I don't know might watch this either on a later date or is watching right now. I don't know. Loves this movie. His name's Mike Rockstro. He knows who he is. He has bad internet, so he actually might not be watching this. Um, but he recommended it to me one time. He let me borrow DVDs. He has a more massive of a DVD collection than I do. And so I was just like, yeah, give me that. And I popped it on, and this is like 2009, 2008, 2009 when I watched it. And I remember like the setting to how I watched it. I just got like laid off from a job. I was sitting at home in my apartment, and I popped it on like middle of the day on like a Tuesday or something. And I didn't get it. Like it's this. So for anybody who's never seen Bubba Hotep, it is about Bruce Campbell plays Elvis, and it deals with the concept of Elvis never died. He's just now in a nursing home somewhere in Texas, living out his days. And the other character is Ossie Davis, or the other actor is Ossie Davis, who plays, and for anybody who doesn't know who Ossie Davis is, he's a black man, and he thinks he's John F. Kennedy. And who is a white man, if you don't know who that is, past president, man who was assassinated. Anyway, so what's happening in this nursing home is there is a mummy walking around eating the souls of the elderly people that stay there. And the only two that can save the day are Elvis and JFK. And it's campy. You feel the low budgetness of it from time to time. But Don Coscarelli is such a genius director. The Phantasm series, John dies at the end. Even though he likes to say it's not his cut of the movie, I love Beastmaster from the early 80s. Such a fun flick. This movie really hits on a deep level the more you watch it, when you also kind of learn what's really going on in the film. The film is a commentary on what we do with our old, in our tired and our weak, the elderly. We pretty much as a society cast them aside. We put them in a home. We don't, we have, and it's, I know, it's not as black and white as that. Everybody's situation can be different than the next person. But as a society, once you hit a certain age, it's almost like you just got to pile the elderly up somewhere. And it's a look at like nursing home culture, which personally for me, when I was a kid, I had multiple grandparents who ended up having to be in a home for different circumstances that were probably absolutely heartbreaking for my parents and whatnot, who had to do something like that. It's kind of I don't say weird, that's disrespectful, but well, I did say it, but it's just a very strange place. There's a lot of melancholy to it. It's people realizing that this is probably their last stop in their life, and that's very dreadful. Bubba Hotep kind of taps into that and gives like the elderly, a good story to tell, a good story about, people at the end of their life and taking a stand on something, in its own campy way. It has a beautiful, touching story. And I didn't get that at first. And so I've rewatched this movie multiple times. I clearly have it on DVD and Blu-ray. This is such a meaningful film to me. I love it so much. And I hated it when it came out. So I did a rewatch for it for my other show. But I thought, since, it is a horror film, but it is a horror comedy. And Bruce, if anybody can do horror comedy, it's Bruce Campbell. Evil Dead, Ash versus Evil Dead. I mean, anything else he pops up in, he can own it. He knows what he's doing. But it's a lot of fun. I think it's also streaming on Tubi right now if anybody wants to check that out. But knock yourself out. But that's Bubba Hotep. Gave that a rewatch. I'll give it a rewatch multiple times over after the fact. So next up on my list is another. It's a horror film. Like, it's labeled a horror film. Oh, I've got Okay. My phone's going off here. I'm getting some notifications. Hold on. Bear with me. I'm just sharing the link. Oh boy. Hold on a sec. I'm just sharing the link. This is how we do live YouTube, I guess. No. One copy. Sorry. I'm putting in my Instagram story live right here on the air. Okay. Apologies. Whiskey Ghoul, I saw you she gave me a shout out or gave the show a shout out in your story. I'll give it a share in a few minutes because I know you just joined in. Thank you for that. Next up is a film called Wake in Fright. Don't know if anybody knows what the hell it is. This is streaming in multiple places. I think it's still on Shudder. I think it's on another small streaming platform I like to champion a lot lately called Kino Cult. Great streaming service based off of the Blu-ray label Kino Lorber. That's where I watched this initially on, and I gave it a rewatch again because, again, it's another rewatch. This movie chills me to the bone, and it's my kind of one crazy night or one crazy weekend turned on its head, and it is alcohol infused. For anybody who doesn't know what Wake in Fright is, oddly enough, it's kind of a Christmas movie. I say that loosely. Because I don't really, yeah, Australians celebrate Christmas. I'm sorry if I sound very close-minded, but I believe that's the case. Just please correct me if I'm wrong on that. Of course they celebrate Christmas. What the fuck is wrong with me? Right. Australians celebrate Christmas. I am live right here and I don't know. Yeah, they do. They have to. It's Christmas. Moving on. Anyway, because they just referenced that on the show, on the movie, he's going on holiday. Because I know that's a thing overseas. Holiday. We go on holiday. So it's a teacher who goes on holiday. I believe it's Christmas. And he's in the outback in Australia, and he's got to go way far away to meet his girlfriend. And he stops off in a kind of real down in the dirts Australian small city or town. A lot of drinking, a lot of bar fights kind of vibe, a lot of gambling. And this guy just goes off the rails. It's weird to say Wake in Fright is a horror film because, like, when obviously you come on this show and we talk about horror films and whatnot, we're talking about monsters, we're talking about werewolves, we're talking about mummies walking around nursing homes and whatnot, and the Addams family and everything, and we'll get into a few other things in a little bit, but we don't talk a lot about like real life horror from time to time on this show. I feel like we touched on it a little bit a few episodes back. We started because we're talking, me and Generic, we're talking about the Dahmer series briefly. So Wake in Fright is very much a horror film about just like it's a very physical film. So basically what happens is this main character goes on a full-on bender and is drunk all the time. And then he links up with Donald Pleasence, who shows up in the film. And they get together, and Donald Pleasence has never been better. This is 1971. So this is close to a decade before he does Halloween. He does it at the end of the decade. We forget how great of a character actor Donald Pleasence really is. I've never seen somebody play a drunk so better and so exhausting. Like, that's one thing we forget about when we've maybe been going through a phase of too much booze. I hope nobody out there has serious issues like that. If so, I hope you get some help. But Donald Pleasence is a character that definitely needs to get some help because he is just an exhausting drunk constantly blabbering around, harmful to others, harmful to himself. Um, there's nothing funny about him being drunk. And he ends up, the two of them link up with some two other Australian redneck guys. And you can sense this main character, I don't know the character's name, is just completely going off the rails with him. And he's starting to lose a grip on the kind of human being that he is. It's almost like he's feeding a monster inside of him as he's going further and further down this hole. In this, the movie takes place in the span of like 3 days, and it's almost like a David Lynch film. I want to compare it to, or if not, I maybe just like something like feels like a Kubrick style thing as well. It's hard to compare it to much of anything, but that's why I just throw up the whole One Crazy Night, One Crazy Weekend movie. Just it gets really dark, and a trigger warning to animal lovers. Most horror film fans are, despite the fact that in the end credits it says no animals were harmed during the making of this film. They go out and they start basically shooting at kangaroos, and it is very unsettling. It's very they say they don't harm animals, but there's something about it that looked really real to me. So it was. I can't handle seeing animals harmed on screen, but sometimes if it's done so fake, where I'd hate to say laughable, but like, you can kind of like deal with it. Maybe you get what I'm saying, but at the end of the day, like, I don't like seeing stuff like that on screen. But in Wake and Fright, seeing these kangaroos being hunted and like wrangled up, it was just kind of rough to watch. And so I think it's like an hour in. So if you ever want to fast forward past that part, very controversial, that scene. Yeah, this film also has a huge commentary on mental health because he contemplates suicide at the end of the film. Um, it's just quite a journey you go on this movie with this character through this absolute hellhole that you don't know how he's going to get out of it. And it's not like he's dealing with, monsters and creatures and anything. He's dealing with crazy Australian outback people. um yeah, so that's Wake and Fright. It's a solid almost 2-hour film. Really goes off the rails. You really go down like a dark path in that movie. You're right there with this character. Check it out. Let me have a chip here. Messing up my hair, dude. All right. So we're oh man. Okay. All right. Let me reconvene. Oh, they do. It just happens to be. Oh, so they celebrate. So I'm just catching up here. So I just learned in the chat, Australians do celebrate Christmas. It's just in the summer. Okay, interesting. I thought I had my assumptions, but I was being careful about what I was trying to say. I don't know. I have no. So please, anybody who's listening, which is very few of you right now, feel free to hop into the chat and talk to me. This also is probably going to be one of the quicker episodes we do this season because it's just me here. I think I said that at the top of the show. So because I'm about to jump into our topic tonight and we're only 30 minutes in. So apologies, you won't get 2.5 hours of us if that's what you're looking for. My beard, by the way, holy shit. You can't see my mouth anymore. It's the hair's hanging down. Holy shit. So real quick, I wanted the final film I watched, which is like a solid, nice segue. So I'm not going to say too much about it. It was a new film dropped on Shudder. I watched a lot of Shudder. I got to catch up on a lot of films that dropped on Shudder the past 2-3 weeks. I'm behind on a lot, and since with the holidays, I'm kind of winding down. So hopefully, I can catch up on a lot of Shudder recently. This just dropped on Friday, and it's so goddamn fun. This is Christmas, Bloody Christmas. I said that as I was getting out of breath. Christmas, Bloody Christmas on Shudder. This is literally a Killer Santa movie, which I feel like is in the fucking zeitgeist right now because another film that's more of an action movie, Violent Night is on in theaters right now. That which I did end up. Oh no, I didn't see it. I almost ended up seeing it the other night. That's more of an action film. I'm probably gonna check that out at some point. Maybe drop it on the show. But Christmas Bloody Christmas dropped on Shutter. This is Joe Begos, who anything he makes, I'll watch. His last film, VFW, about the that basically turns into a siege film where these like Vietnam and Desert Storm vets are all hanging out at the local VFW, and there's like a drug gang across the street coming after him and shit, and it's like it's so fucking good, and it's and then he did another movie, Bliss, that came out I think a few months before that. That both of them dropped on Shutter, about like an artist who gets possessed by I think she gets possessed off like a drug or something and turns like demonic and shit. That one got really wild too. But his aesthetic, like, I mean, I could never myself, as someone still trying to make films, could match this aesthetic, but I love it. He shoots this, I believe, on 16 millimeter, which I think he shot Bliss on as well. I don't know if he shot VFW on 16 millimeter, but the film's, I believe it's, I think it's 16 millimeter film. Gives it that cool grainy grindhouse look. The plot is this, and I'm reading it off Google, but it's Christmas Eve and a fiery record store owner, Tori Toombs, just wants to get drunk and party until the robotic Santa Claus at a nearby toy store goes haywire and makes her night more than a little complicated. Santa embarks on a rampant killing spree through the neon-drenched snowscape, ultimately forcing Tori into a blood-splattered battle for survival. This is fucking 87 minutes of so much goddamn fun. It feels like it's part Silent Night, Deadly Night, part Terminator. It's newly released, so I don't want to dive too far into it because I know a lot of people who listen to this and watch this have Shudder. Go check it out if you haven't. Go check it out tonight once I'm done here, and fucking enjoy, because it's you know how like in trailers there's like a funny moment, but when it hits in the movie, it's not as funny. There's a moment in the trailer that made me laugh my ass off when she's just like, she's telling a cop like, it's Santa's out there killing people or something, and the cop's like, oh, it's Santa, really? And you had to have been there. I'm not doing it justice, but when it hits in the movie, it's still just as funny. Again, check it out. It's still fresh in my head. I just watched it the other day, but that's Christmas Bloody Christmas. Yeah, like I just love his neon aesthetic he brings to the film. Joe Begos. We saw it in Bliss and VFW. I think he does that look best. I think there's a lot of indie filmmakers out there that try to match that, and it just feels very fabricated. His just feels very organic, and I appreciate that a lot. So, with all that being said, it is Christmas time, and I want to talk about Christmas horror movies. I just want to also mention I did put the 411, or the, I don't know, the feeler out there to my co-host who could not join me here tonight. If he wanted to maybe announce like some of his Christmas horror films that he discovered and whatnot. Hold on a second. And so maybe if you follow us on social media, he might be putting up a video. I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens. But so Christmas horror has always been kind of a cool thing for me because, you know, after Halloween, I won't lie. November, I watched like a lot of the awards season stuff. I mean, of course, I still watch my horror films, but I don't know. November's kind of like an off month for me with horror. I kind of got the Halloween hangover a little bit. I don't know, but by the time I hit Christmas again, I want to watch some horror movies again. Let me take a bite here. Oh man, holy balls! That's really hot. Oh, you know what's crazy about this? Um, it used to be like my hair got crazy but now it's my beard. Now it's my goddamn beard is what gets hot. Um, so anyway, let's go with Christmas horror again. I absolutely love diving into holiday season horror because I think, the older I get, um, I do get stressed out around this time of year. I do get a little more anxious. I like I'm not the best gift giver out there. Like, and that's not like I'm I'm lazy or I'm trying to like I just like or I don't listen. I get a lot of anxiety about giving gifts to people because like what if they don't like them? um I do my best to, and obviously moving forward in my life as now a family man, I have to achieve that. But like giving gifts to people makes me so anxious because I literally one time gave my nephew it was the Christmas after about a month after I finished my feature film, after I'd done a premiere for it and everything, yada yada yada. And so like I was a little checked out for a few months. I won't lie, with family. I was really hung up a lot on things. Um, so I really wanted to do well now for Christmas to kind of make up for some lost time. And one of my nephews, I bought him something. He was, I think, like 4 years old. And it was some toy. And I literally sat there and watched him open it. I'll get back to horror movies in just a minute. I literally saw him watch him open it. They're filming it on camera. He looks the thing up and down and goes, I didn't want this. And that shit was on camera too, man. And like, I just don't want to let anybody down with gifts. So like, I feel like I get really anxious. And as any fan of horror movies knows, this is a genre that I feel gives a lot of releases to those fears and anxiousness and whatnot. And, I still have my moments of kind of absolutely utter goddamn meltdowns. But watching horror has helped. So this is the time of year I think when people should probably watch more horror. And I'm not a psychologist or anything, so I don't quote me on that. But just to get more of a release, because I think people this time of year they get there's people out there that just get lonely and whatnot. And I'm not saying this is the cure. Let's go into horror movies. I'm going down a fucking wormhole here. So for starters, I'm just going to kind of name off some titles that I love that I think if you haven't checked them out yet, please check them out. And some are more popular than others. Some aren't really necessarily full-on horror films. Most of them are. And I'm going to start at the top. This is the granddaddy of them all. I'd rather start here than just cap off the show with it because I have an interesting one I'd like to cap off the show with. Black Christmas, the original one from the 1970s. This is a film that I think for a lot of people, there's a lot of people that don't know about it. They've seen like the remakes. The Blumhouse did one in 2019 that I think a lot of people thought was not the greatest in the world. I think someone compared it to if Twitter was a movie. I never saw it. I don't know. I did see the 2006 one, Black Xmas with an X. I liked that movie when it came out and nobody else saw it. And now I see a lot of talk about it on the internet. But I want to go back to the original Black Christmas. This is a movie that stars the great Olivia Hussey, who she's played Juliet in Romeo and Juliet before. She's a great, great actress. Margot Kidder, who obviously went on to do Wonder Woman, the TV series. I can't talk. I'm trying to, gotta slow down here. Run out of breath. This was released in 1974, directed by directed by Bob Clark, who went on to make none other than a more iconic non-horror Christmas movie, just your average Christmas film. That is none other than A Christmas Story. It's crazy that he did this, you know, iconic slasher film. And 10 years later, he goes out and does this iconic Christmas film. I think that's just proof of a great director. um, sorry, I was looking at, I'm bouncing back and forth between Zoom and the YouTube channel. So I'm seeing comments and whatnot. So that's cool. Um, but Black Christmas to me is a bone chilling film. This is a movie that was kind of a precursor to Halloween. John Carpenter has owned up to saying that, yeah, he checked it out. He kind of maybe took a nod from some things when he was crafting Halloween. A lot of people call this, it's this, and really Texas Chainsaw is like what kicked off maybe the slasher era. That's not something that's set in stone. That's always up for debate. I'm not saying that's my opinion. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying that's, an idea that's out there. But for anybody who's never seen Black Christmas, it's pretty much about a group of sorority girls at a college that are prepping for winter break. And they begin to get a lot of anonymous, very inappropriate, threatening, even phone calls from just some guy. And eventually they all start getting stalked and picked off one by one. And one of the more terrifying, and there's even like scary moments in that film that are not necessarily about like, someone being murdered. There's the idea of the dread I feel of someone who, people, knowing what has been the fate of a character, and then another character comes into the film and they don't know what happened to like their daughter. And that kind of shit is terrifying to me. There's a father character that I think is looking for his now missing daughter, who we as audience members, I believe, already know that that person has been attacked and murdered. And it's just like, just seeing him struggle to put the pieces together of where his daughter could be and like what has maybe happened to her is just absolutely dreadful and hard to watch for me. Black Christmas to me also has just a bone chilling ending because, spoiler alert for anybody who's never seen it, like horror films don't necessarily always have happy endings. There's always like this last little jump scare. There's a scare at the end of Black Christmas, but I don't think it's a jump scare. I think it is a more of like, oh my God, he's still out there. This guy hasn't been caught. Even when you think he's been caught, he's still just going. Like, there's a character in the film who is killed early on in the movie and is never found. And by the end of the movie, you still see her body, and like they've never even discovered it. It's just, there's just so much absolutely dreadful. Like, I didn't expect Black Christmas to be as scary as I thought it was going to be in my first outing years ago watching it. And in all honesty, oh my God, this chip is drenched in hot sauce and now it's soggy, so I better eat it. Sorry, I got distracted. Oh. It's a film about the characters in the film. It's just funny how I pick back up. The characters in the film are very sympathetic, so you care about them while all this awfulness is happening to them. It's not necessarily exploitative. These girls are not set up to die. These girls are, very smart in navigating what's going on. The film also has the great John Saxon, who went on to show up in Nightmare on Elm Street and not millions, but a lot of other great genre films. That's Black Christmas, starting at the top. I think other great films that have kind of spawned off from that, and you really kind of started to see them pop up in the 1980s. One of the big ones that isn't necessarily a horror film. And I think I'm starting with the big, and then I'm going to like the absolute shit shows here. The big one in the 1980s, that isn't really a horror film for the last 45 minutes. Talking Gremlins. Gremlins is Joe Dante's utter classic, executive produced by Steven Spielberg. I love how it's a film that takes place in some winter town, and it's clearly a Hollywood backlot. And like you can see, there's like a couple shots where like you can see like through a couple buildings, you see like California hills. So we know the plot of Gremlins by now, but it takes place during Christmas time, and I think the climax of the movie is on Christmas Eve. And by the time we get to that night, Christmas Eve night, when the gremlins start to multiply, the Mogwai, and you got Stripe out there doing his thing, causing chaos. There's other elements of that movie that are kind of like just uncomfortable to me. I mean, Joe Dante is a big fan of like cartoons. He originally wanted to be a cartoonist, coming up through the ranks. So a lot of the kills are done in a very cartoon way. There's the crabby old lady who wants to get the dog put down in the beginning of the movie. She meets her demise in quite a like, holy shit, they did that kind of way, but it's also kind of funny, I'd hate to say. But one part of Gremlins that like really makes the holidays a downer is the iconic Phoebe Cates speech of why her and her family doesn't celebrate Christmas. I'm not going to say what that is here live. Anybody who's seen Gremlins knows exactly what I'm talking about, but yeah, it's just like a downer. Like it's still like I just watched Gremlins like a week ago and preparing for this show, and I was just like, oh, that still hits. It just still hits, man. My beard is just all over the place. Need more crackers. So you have, so you have something like Gremlins, but if you go back to the beginning of the 80s, you also have something called To All a Good Night, which is streaming on Shudder right now. I caught this the other day, and I was expecting it to be utter dog shit. And look, it's not, if you go in with low expectations, you'll find it enjoyable. But it doesn't do too much, but it also like, again, kind of like Black Christmas. I thought like you'd think it'd be something that would go that exploitative route, and it yeah, it kind of dives into that slasher vibe of let's set these characters up to die kind of thing, but it doesn't go there as deep as I wanted it to. But again, they took the Christmas holiday, and one of the big things to do, maybe, and going forward, we saw this again in another big franchise, was let's have the killer dress up as Santa Claus. So this takes place at a prep school in like Southern California. And these girls and guys start getting picked off one by one, by a killer dressed as Santa Claus. And we learn there's actually two characters. I think that's established early on, I think, or in the middle. And turns into a whodunit kind of movie. That one feels very low budget. But again, if you go in with low expectations, you probably won't be bummed out. I kind of thought it was okay. Hold on a sec. I'm just getting some texts from people that are watching that are sending me they're sending me their lists and everything. I'm gonna talk about that in just a minute. Sorry. Hold on a sec. I'm just getting caught up on something. I'm also going back on my notes here. Yeah, so stuff like that in the 80s. But after To All Good Night, a little later on, you got a movie called Silent Night, Deadly Night, which, if anything, I'm going to say this right now. I have not seen any of the bad sequels of Silent Night, Deadly Night. I've seen. All right, no, I take it back. I've seen one and two. Everybody knows two with the iconic garbage day scene. Um, but I haven't seen three, four, and five, which I heard. I don't know. Someone made a case for part three, but Silent Night, Deadly Night is has the cool poster of a guy in a Santa Claus suit going down a chimney, and like he's holding an axe and everything. Uh, Silent, these by the time we're in the 80s and we're in full swing after Friday the 13th, like these movies kind of get a little like they're not they're looking like they want to scare you, but they don't, but they're fun. Um oh man. Oh, whew, I need a breather. I've been talking for a while. 1 hour straight live. You guys think I could go for another hour? Well, you're wrong because I can't, but I'll get in what I can get in. No, Silent Night, Deadly Night has kind of become this cool like cult franchise of a Christmas horror movie. Um, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's good, turn your brain off kind of stuff. Um, the original one is about I believe it's about a kid who sees his family being murdered by a guy in a in a Santa Claus costume. And instead of when he grows up, maybe he tries to do the right thing and move on with his life, or even go on like a path of vengeance to find that guy who killed his family. He doesn't. He just goes and does the same thing. I don't fucking understand why someone would someone would do that. Yeah, like that's it. Kind of just is what it is. Uh, Again, there's a ton of there's a couple other films. There's another one from the 1970s that came out before Black Christmas called Silent Night, Bloody Night. And that was not a slasher film by any stretch, but it was about a guy who inherits he inherits a mansion or something, and it used to be an insane asylum, I think. And I forget how it ties into Christmas. I'd seen bits and pieces of it. I'm not really sure how it ties into Christmas, but I guess like the lawyer who's like in charge of the sale comes over to overlook things, and like murders start popping up all over the town. And from there uh it starts to get linked back to the house of of the house that's been bought. I'm having a brain fart right now. I have been talking for a while. I need to take another sip of this. Hold on. All right. Here's another thing I want to talk about. Oh boy. Okay. I just clicked on something that could have been bad. Other Christmas horror movies that stand out to me that I want to recommend to people here. We're gonna go with another one. I'm just looking in my notes here. Da, 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 da. Oh, remember what I said about Bloodbeat, by the way. Bloodbeat is not a Thanksgiving horror movie. It is a Christmas horror movie. I was wrong a couple weeks ago. I'm so freaking sorry. Forgive me on that one. So I want to now fast forward out of the 80s because you have the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise, Gremlins, Black Christmas. I want to say through the 90s, into the early 2000s, and even into the 2010s, we saw a lot more. Here's coming up, a lot more Christmas horror show up. Anything from Jesus Christ, what is it? The Gingerbread Man, which is like I think a full moon feature with Gary Busey voicing a killer gingerbread man. I just want to say I've seen this movie. I've scrolled past this movie a million times on Tubi. I've never seen it. So if anybody has any notes for me on Gary Busey's The Ginger Man, leave them in the comments. Maybe I'll look into it tonight after I get off the air here. All right.
I'm officially out of crackers now too. Oh, whew. Um, but I want to talk about another, I believe, and I'm not sure if it's a full moon feature, but it's in the same ilk of it. This needed to be mentioned on this show. When I was compiling the list, I have to go with, I think it's 1997, maybe 1998, Jack Frost. So Jack Frost comes in the same ilk that is of Child's Play. Serial killer dies, finds a way to transfer his body over to this, crazy thing, whether it's a doll in Child's Play, but in Jack Frost, turns out to be a killer snowman. This is a movie I saw numerous times on the VHS aisle, the horror aisle, and hot sauce is taking over. um, yeah, it's like the hot sauce is like kind of like it's like the Jeffrey man. If anybody knows the comparison I'm doing, that Get Him to the Greek with Jonah Hill and that dude who was married to Katy Perry for a while, and they got divorced. But they smoke a Jeffrey, and it's like, ooh. The thing about a Jeffrey man is it goes away, and then it comes back. Well, that's this hot sauce right now. It's coming back, dude. So I'm talking about Jack Frost. Jack Frost is a movie about a killer snowman, and I walked past this thing hundreds of times at Blockbuster or a video store. And it was cool because the VHS cover was a hologram where you walk past up to like, you think it's like a nice, cuddly Frosty the Snowman kind of thing. And then as you get closer, the hologram shifts and it's like an evil snowman. Scare the shit out of me when I was like 9 or 10 years old. Then you watch it as a teenager and it's absolutely hilarious. The movie is without a doubt huge in camp. I think this has a co-star of Shannon Elizabeth, who was in the American Pie film. She was big in the early 2000s. She's in it before her career kind of blew up. It's kind of funny that it takes place during the winter time when I think clearly they're shooting this during the spring or summer in like Northern California. Looks kind of like that. This movie also shouldn't be confused with the Michael Keaton touching, family comedy about a man who's constantly on the road a lot and away from his family. And he has a good bond with his son and he dies in a car accident, but he comes back as a snowman. And I know that's a beautiful thing, but it's a real corny movie. And like, you can kind of see why Michael Keaton, like around that time, started to kind of not be in things, and like he definitely took a break from acting and like doing a movie like that. I don't know. Hey, maybe somebody likes it, but don't get those two Jack Frosts confused. I'm sure a lot of people back in the late 90s thought they were watching some family friendly movie, and then it cuts to a scene where a giant snowman's having sex with Shannon Elizabeth in the shower. Watch at your own risk. I also want to go into something like The Nightmare Before Christmas, which I know is a Disney film, but let's face it, the horror community has adopted it, and I think I don't even think they've adopted it. I think they just like knew like, okay, I know that movie's not going to scare me, but it's totally my vibe, and Tim Burton has a lot to do with it. So A Nightmare Before Christmas does the great thing of bridging the two big holidays. I feel like Halloween and Christmas are the biggest holidays where anybody and everybody can get involved. It's not like, oh, this holiday is about this culture and, people just kind of observe it from afar. Like, I mean, I know like I should obviously preference, there are people that don't celebrate Christmas out there, with different religions and whatnot. And I respect that. But, I'm talking about just like big, they're two of the biggest holidays out there, and that movie bridges it together so well of taking, I know there's no scares in it, but I feel like there's a lot of like goth stuff to it and macabre to it. And I remember when I was a kid and that movie came out, and there was kind of a warning to parents in theaters, like maybe you should not let your kids see this. And I remember, I think my mom sitting me down and going like, do you seem interested in The Nightmare Before Christmas? Do you want to, I'll take you to go see it if you feel comfortable. And yeah, I was cool with it and I had a good time. But I can kind of see it, like looking back, like, yeah, like maybe a 5-year-old shouldn't go see it, but that's not up to me. That's up to the parents. But regardless, I think that's a fun for the whole family kind of Christmas horror, even though I don't know if you call it horror, but I think, like I said, the horror audience, the horror fans, love that stuff. And I think they'll include that stuff in a Christmas horror binge watch. It's a fun flick. And I think one of the last times I went back to it, I forgot how much music was actually in that damn movie. So yeah, I have to include that one, just like how I included Gremlins, how it's not like a full-on horror movie, but there's something in it for the fan base. I do want to touch on a cool indie that is, I think it was off Shudder for a while, and I think it's back on. I've covered Rebecca McKendry's film Glorious. Did an article for it back in August, got to interview the writer of it, Joshua Hull, or I should say co-writer, but he was pretty much the brainchild of the movie in the early stages on my personal podcast. Go check it out on my show, The Basement. I think it was the one that dropped on Halloween. It's got a great title to it. It's all because of a Lovecraftian glory hole. But Rebecca McKendry also directed back in 2018. All the Creatures Were Stirring. I think she co-directed it with her husband, David Ian McKendry. They're writing and directing partners. In personal life as well, they're married. But it's an anthology horror, and I fucking love anthology. Like, who in the horror genre doesn't love anthology? Creepshow. I mean, all I can think of right now is Creepshow. But hey, Creepshow and All the Creatures Were Stirring, and you get a Christmas. I'm talking like Mike Tyson now. That was mean. He comes in and punches me in the face. You get a Christmas anthology horror film, and there's a cool wraparound segment about like a date that goes south, and they end up in this theater, and it's people telling these stories up on the screen. And it's the movies and it's the little shorts that you watch within the anthology. And it covers everything from just like consumerism in, buying stuff at stores during Christmas time, stalkers, bullshit Christmas office parties. And then it gets like really out of this world with like crazy creatures and the, I think it's the Constance Wu segment. They got her to be in the movie, which is cool because she's a fucking superstar now. This was a little indie, but it's back on Shudder, and Rebecca McKendry's gone on to do, I mean, she's been doing great work for like 20 years, from Fangoria to podcasting to I think she teaches at USC like during the, like that's the life. I know she's not watching, but like I'm a huge fan of hers. She teaches at like USC during the year, and in the summertime she goes and makes like a feature film for Shudder. It's fucking awesome. That's the life. Yeah. So moving on from that, I'm just like looking at my list here. It's on the topic of horror anthology. This is like arguably Tales from the Crypt and Christmas episode. Yes, thank you, Angie. That's what I'm talking about. Tales from the Crypt always had, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but Tales of the Crypt always had good Christmas episodes. And I know you're probably, are you referencing the, if I may ask, to someone leaving notes in the chat, are you referencing the old one from the 70s, or are you referencing the show? Because I think both have, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think both have, cool Christmas horror stuff. Moving on though, this is a movie that I think a lot of people scroll past it and they don't go back to it. And this is I think it's 2015, A Christmas Horror Story. This is streaming on Shudder right now. I believe it's on Tubi. I'm talking about Shudder a lot tonight. mean, I talk about Shudder a lot every week, but I got this off of a lot of recommendations. Um, and I would always just be like, I don't know. It's the poster of the poster for the movie is Santa Claus in a in a showdown with Krampus, and it just like it reeks of like low budget, straight to video kind of, you know what I'm getting at here, where it's not going to be good. And a lot like To All a Good Night. If you go in with low expectations, as in life, sometimes if you don't expect anything, the unexpected fucking will blow your mind. I liked this movie. It's not necessarily, when I think of anthology, I think of segment and then a different segment and then a different segment. This is kind of like three stories going on at the same time, and it's just like cutting back and forth between them. They kind of maybe intertwine a little bit, but not like heavy. And like one story is about these teenagers going into like an abandoned building where there was this like gruesome thing that happened during Christmas, I believe. Another one is like a family going out to visit the father's side of the family, and they're like these mean German people that believe in Krampus. Another one is like this family goes out in the woods, and they they go out and like hop a fence and cut off they go in like the backside of like a Christmas tree farm, and they cut off a tree, and then like they try to like hop the fence, go back, and the kid gets like lost in the woods and gets like stuck in like I don't know what it's called, in like a tree where there's like a little crevice you can walk into it. Maybe that's what it's called, a crevice, but but the kid comes back out of it and he's completely different, and it's like gets a little batshit crazy. And then they obviously cap it off with Santa Claus versus evil elves. And if you really want to see Krampus versus Santa Claus, you got to wait till like the last 5 minutes of the movie. It's a little long, but it's like 109 minutes, I think, or something. Like I feel like you could have shaved 15 minutes off of it, but I thought it was kind of fun. I don't care. Like it was kind of fun. And I think Batman versus Superman was big at the time, so they were trying to capitalize on the two big things of a brand going toe to toe, and the brand was Christmas. I also want to I'm not even going to try. What else do I got here? On the topic of Krampus, I do want to touch on the film Krampus, which I think came out the same year. Look, you can scroll through a lot of your Tubies or other like streaming platforms that aren't like the major ones. And I think Tubi's got skin in the game now with streaming. I think they're killing it right now, especially in the genre. Like a lot of people are flocking to Tubi who love horror because there's a great catalog on that. A lot of classics too. But Krampus, the big one that I think was released by I think now they're just 20th Century Studios. They're not Fox, but the time is 20th Century Fox. I could be wrong about that, but this has got Toni Collette in it, kind of at the beginning of her genre film run before she did things like Hereditary and whatever else. Is that it? No, she's done like other shit. But like, well, obviously before that, she did The Sixth Sense, like at the end of the 90s. But Toni Collette is great for the genre, great stuff. But I had no idea. I'd always like heard things about Krampus. But this kind of opened up the floodgates to people to make like Krampus movies. And there's so many like low budget, straight to video or straight to streaming kind of. I mean, everything's straight to streaming now, but Krampus films. There's so many Krampus movies out there, and Krampus being the evil half goat, half demon that takes care of the naughty kids creature. This was such a cool, fun movie that also taps into the issues of getting your family together for the holidays. There's a lot of there's a lot of like shitty people in this movie. From what I remember, I didn't rewatch it for this episode, but this turned me on to like that whole idea of this evil Christmas creature that I thought was cool. And I mean, I haven't really gone on my way to watch those other. Yeah. Um, I highly no. I seriously, I'm reading for anybody who doesn't know the hell I'm talking about, but I'm talking about I'm watching, looking at comments. But yes, watch A Christmas Horror Story. Don't scroll past it. Give it a chance. If you think it sucks, what are you gonna do? But it's worth a shot. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but I like Krampus. I thought it was a fun flick, and I haven't checked out any other knockoffs, but Toni Collette is great in it, as she is in everything. I also need to preference some foreign films. Generic would like that I do that because he fucking hates America. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know, man. Rare Exports is turned into a cult classic. Rare Exports, I think, is only on Tubi right now, and I think it's also on Peacock. Um, Rare Exports has been, I think it's from Finland, I think is where it's from. This has been compared to John Carpenter's The Thing over and over again lately. I just love the fact that it's about a creature getting discovered by kids. Um, I don't want to, because I feel like there's also, just for the sake of anybody rewatching this, I know we only got a few people watching right now, but I don't want to give it away because like I think there's still people catching on to Rare Exports, and I love this movie. I think it's on Hulu as well. I think that's what my information I'm getting on this right now. It's horror, it's comedy, it's, again, I think people need to start looking past, stateside stuff and looking out to other countries. And I think this is turning into one of these cult classic films of the last 10 years. That's Rare Exports. It dives a lot into mythology with Christmas as well. I'm trying to think, do I have any else here to go over? If you guys, I know you guys are, a few of y'all dropped some hints. I got one right now for you. And I almost forgot to mention this. This movie takes place on Christmas Eve. And came out in 2007. And I remember when the trailer dropped. And look, this movie isn't that bad. The title is very lackluster, but P2 in 2007 takes place on Christmas Eve. So technically it's a Christmas horror movie. And it's about a woman working late on Christmas Eve, and she's the last one to head out of the office that day. And in the parking lot, the attendant won't let her leave. And it turns into a very much little like cat and mouse game. I need to revisit this because I saw it, I think, just at like a party amongst friends when I was like 20 years, like a year after it came out. And it's like, I don't know. I was checking in and out of it, so I need to revisit this one. But I just remember when the trailer dropped, it was such a weird teaser. It felt so cheap and super glued together. That when the title came up and like it was a voiceover announcing the title, it just went P2. The whole theater laughed. So there's that. A few other ones real quick as I start to wrap up here. Streaming on Shudder right now, and this is a bit of more of a comedy, but it's a lot of fun. Zombie musical, Christmas zombie musical, you could say. Anna and the Apocalypse is a lot of fun. Been a while since I checked that out. Shudder just picked it up. I might give that a watch this holiday season. I'm just naming off titles now to kind of wind things up here. There's a lot of sorry. There's a lot of indies out there too. Things like Day of the Beast, which came out in 1995. That's a Spanish film about a rogue priest scours the New Testament, determines the exact date the Antichrist will arrive, and surprise, it's midnight on Christmas Eve. That's when the devil's coming. It's that one I caught a few years ago. That one's a lot of fun. Again, reaching out across overseas to kind of watch some of the stuff that's coming out there is a lot of cool. It's really cool. What else do we got here? There is other ones like Christmas Evil. Christmas Evil came out in 1980. This one was controversial when it was released, but people kind of started to let it slide because it does have a very big camp value. It's about a Christmas obsessed boy who, after learning the truth about Santa, grows up and eventually snaps, going on a killing spree in his Santa suit. In quotes on something I'm reading right here, it's been called the taxi driver of Christmas movies. Great fucking analogy. I think that one's streaming on Tubi. I don't know. I'm talking a lot of Tubi tonight. So yeah, I think I'm going to cap things off there with all that talk. Christmas horror. There's actually a lot more out there than you think. Some of it maybe isn't the most classy stuff in the world, but why would we want to watch things that are classy all the time? You know what I mean? I should mention before I go, everybody needs to track down the classic Bill Goldberg starring Santa's Slay, spelled Slay. It's another killer Santa movie. Oddly enough, the opening scene has like really good actors in it, like recognizable, like A-list act. Like James Caan is in the opening scene. I think Chris Kattan, who was big at the time of the movie came out. I know he's, not a superstar anymore, but he was big. He was on SNL at the time. I think the movie came out. I think a few other names in the opening scene that, like, when you sit there, you go like, what the fuck are these people doing in this movie? Santa's Slay is so fucking cool. I think that's got to be streaming somewhere. That they always pick up movies like that. Yeah. So I don't know. I always, just to wrap things up here, I always dug seeing a horror film done during the holiday season. And it's not to be like a nihilist and stick it to, all the happy-go-lucky Hallmark movies that are out there. Because look, I'll say this right here on the air. I don't mind those films. I think there's a cool formula to them that is comfort food for people during the holiday season. And that's completely fine. I got no beef with that. And I'm losing viewership by the minute. So I've been talking for an hour, 22 minutes, and I got to wind things up here because that's a lot of talking. Again, I just want to preface, can't say that word tonight. Generic had needed the night off. He's got to finish up his stuff with his school so he can maybe shift more focus on a lot more other things, like expanding on this show and few other things he's got coming down the pipeline. Obviously, he's got his books and everything. So yeah, he was having internet issues, and I just said, look, you do your thing. I'll take care of the show this week. I'm flying solo tonight. Hopefully you thought I did a pretty good job. Now, big question lies, and I believe, and if this changes, we'll announce it on our socials, but when's the next episode going to be? Because we do bi-weekly, and 2 weeks from today is Christmas. Holy shit. Fuck. Christmas is 2 weeks from today. Christmas night. Literally, Christmas is ending 2 weeks from Jesus Christ, man. So we decided we're not going to do an episode on Christmas. We also were going to initially do just back-to-back 11th and the 18th. But my co-host has a prior arrangement he has to deal with on the 18th. So what you're getting right now is it for hot genre topics in 2022. But I will say this, obviously we have committed to doing 10 episodes of this. I just banged out number 6 by myself. God, I'm weird. But, so we're going to, obviously the holiday season, we kind of want to, kick back, relax, maybe enjoy some things to end the year. It's been a wild year for me. I'm not even exaggerating by that. It's really been a roller coaster of a year for me for a lot of great reasons. Um, so I'm kind of winding down a little bit on 2022 myself. So I will say this: we will be back at the first Sunday night in 2023, which I believe is, I think, New Year's Eve night, like, or New Year's Day at night. Um, so hopefully you guys will be really hungover and want to come on and watch us have some hot sauce on the first Sunday in January. And after that, we'll have, I think we'll have 4 more episodes. And so we'll have some new topics. We're going to start looking ahead to 2023. And usually what I do here on the show, since my personal little other project I do, The Basement, airs on Monday, feel free to tune in tomorrow because it will drop at some point in the morning. If you want to hear more stuff about Christmas films, listen to The Basement tomorrow. It's not about Christmas horror movies, but it's not about Christmas movies, but I actually am it's an episode by myself. So I did this by myself for nearly an hour and a half. I do this one for about an hour tomorrow. It's about Christmas movies. It's about films that take place during the Christmas season or on Christmas that aren't necessarily Christmas movies. So yes, you can say Die Hard, but I don't really dive too far into Die Hard on this episode. I picked 5 films that take place during the holiday season, but aren't about holiday cheer and whatnot. You can probably guess what some of those might be. So with all that being said, I don't know how to cap the show, but we will see you. Myself and my co-host Generic will be back in 2023, literally on the first day of the new year, or the second. I don't even know. I think it's the first. Regardless, thank you all for listening over the past 6 episodes. We'll see you. We'll see you guys, and go watch some Christmas horror movies. Go watch everything I recommended here tonight, and then some. And we will see you in a few weeks.